Before we dive into this story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. You won't believe what happens next. Enjoy the story. The 911 operator had heard almost everything in her 15 years on the job. Domestic disputes, car accidents, medical emergencies. But on that cold October evening, the voice on the other end of the line made her freeze. It was a child, a little girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, her words breaking between sobs. "My son is disappearing," the small voice whispered. "He's vanishing. He's going to die." The operator's fingers hovered over her keyboard. "Sweetie, how old are you?" "7," Emily Harwell answered, her voice trembling with pure terror. "And whose son are we talking about, honey?" "Mine, my baby. Please help him." The call was dispatched immediately. Officer Tom Beckford, 42 years old and a widower for the past 3 years, was only 2 blocks away when the radio crackled to life. Something about the urgency in the dispatcher's tone made his chest tighten. He'd been a cop in Millbrook for 20 years, seen his share of heartbreak in this small American town, but this felt different. When he arrived at the weathered house on Maple Street, everything looked quiet. Too quiet. Tom knocked hard on the front door. No answer. He knocked again, louder this time, identifying himself as police. From inside he heard it, a baby crying, weak, strained, desperate. "Millbrook Police, open the door!" A child's voice came through the woods, shaking with panic. "I can't leave him. He needs me." Tom's training kicked in. He stepped back and slammed his shoulder into the door. Once, twice. The old lock gave way on the 3rd hit. What he found inside would stay with him for the rest of his life. The living room was dim, lit only by a small lamp in the corner. There, sitting on the worn carpet, was the smallest girl Tom had ever seen responding to an emergency. Emily Harwell couldn't have weighed more than 50 pounds herself. Her dark hair was tangled, her oversized t-shirt hanging off her thin frame, and in her arms, she held a baby. Tom had seen sick children before. He'd responded to medical calls, witnessed suffering, but this was different. The infant in Emily's arms looked almost translucent, his skin so pale you could trace the faint blue of veins beneath. His tiny chest rose and fell in shallow, labored breaths. He couldn't have weighed more than a bag of groceries. Emily was crying, trying desperately to get the baby to drink from a cloth she'd soaked in water. "Please, wake up," she was whispering to him. "Please eat something. Please don't disappear." Tom knelt down slowly, his voice gentle. "Hey there. I'm Officer Tom. What's your name?" "Emily," she sobbed, not looking up from the baby. "And this is Asher. He's my brother, but I take care of him. I'm his mommy when our real mommy is sleeping." Tom's throat tightened. "Where is your mom, Emily?" Emily pointed toward a dark hallway. "Her room. She's been sleeping for 2 days. She works so much, and she's so tired, and I didn't want to wake her, so I tried to take care of Asher myself, but—" Her words dissolved into tears. "But he's getting lighter. Every day he weighs less. It's like he's turning into air. He's disappearing, and I don't know how to stop it." Tom gently reached out. "Can I hold him, sweetheart? I'm going to help you." Emily hesitated, then carefully transferred the baby into Tom's arms. The moment Asher settled against his chest, Tom felt his blood run cold. The baby weighed almost nothing. Tom had held newborns before, held his own nephew at birth. This child was 4 months old, according to the medical bracelet still attached to his impossibly thin wrist. He should have weighed 14, maybe 15 pounds. Tom would have guessed 6, maybe 7. "Emily, I need you to stay right here, okay? I'm going to call for help, and then we're going to make sure Asher gets everything he needs." As Tom radioed for an ambulance, his eyes swept the room. Empty baby bottles lined the counter, some filled with water, others with what looked like diluted juice. A small smartphone lay on the floor, its screen frozen on a YouTube video titled, "How to Feed a Newborn Baby." This little girl had been trying to teach herself how to be a mother. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Paramedics rushed in, their faces shifting from professional calm to barely concealed shock when they saw Asher. One of them, a veteran named Paula, lifted the baby onto a portable scale. She looked at her partner, then at Tom, her voice low. "We need to move, now." As they prepared to transport Asher to Millbrook General Hospital, Tom walked toward the dark hallway Emily had pointed to. He found a bedroom at the end, the curtains drawn, the air stale. On the bed, fully clothed and unconscious from sheer exhaustion, was a young woman. She couldn't have been older than 30. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hands, even in sleep, were clenched into fists. Tom gently shook her shoulder. Ma'am, wake up." Delilah Harwell jolted awake, her eyes wild with confusion and fear. When she saw the police uniform, she gasped. What's happening? Where's Emily? Your children are being taken to the hospital," Tom said carefully, watching her face. "Ma'am, when was the last time you fed your baby?" Delilah's face crumbled. This morning. I left bottles. I told Emily how to do it. I had to work. I had to. We'll lose the house if I don't work." She tried to stand, stumbling. "Is Asher okay? Please tell me he's okay." Tom helped steady her. "We're going to find out. But right now, I need you to come with me." At the hospital, Dr. Rebecca Lennox, a pediatrician with 20 years of experience, took one look at Asher and immediately called for the intensive care unit. But as she began her examination, her expression shifted from concern to something else. Confusion. She tested his reflexes, checked his muscle tone, measured his head circumference. Finally, she looked up at Tom and Delilah, her voice quiet but certain. "This isn't just about feeding," she said. "Something else is happening to this baby, and we need to find out what it is before it's too late." The fluorescent lights of Millbrook General Hospital hummed overhead as Tom paced the emergency room waiting area. Through the glass window, he could see a team of doctors surrounding Asher's tiny form. Delilah sat in a plastic chair, her whole body trembling, her face buried in her hands. Emily stood beside Tom, holding his hand so tightly her knuckles had turned white. "Is Asher going to die?" she whispered. Tom knelt down to her eye level. "The doctors here are the best in the state, sweetheart. They're going to do everything they can." But even as he said it, doubt gnawed at him. He'd seen that look on Dr. Lennox's face. She'd been a pediatrician for 2 decades. Whatever she'd discovered during her initial examination had rattled her. A nurse emerged from the examination room, carrying a clipboard. She walked straight to Tom. "Officer, we need to speak with the mother immediately. There are some questions about the baby's medical history." Tom approached Delilah gently. "Ma'am, they need to ask you some things about Asher." Delilah looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "I tried," she said, her voice breaking. "I tried so hard. I work 16-hour shifts at the processing plant, double shifts, sometimes triple. After my husband left, I had no choice. The bills, the rent, the food. I couldn't afford daycare. I thought Emily could help. She's so smart, so responsible. I left instructions, bottles prepared. I thought I was doing enough." Her words tumbled out in a desperate rush, as if confessing might somehow fix everything. Tom sat beside her. "How long has Asher been losing weight?" "I don't know," Delilah admitted, tears streaming down her face. "Maybe 6 weeks. I noticed he felt lighter when I held him, but I thought it was normal. I thought babies just grew differently. I've been so tired. I can barely think straight." "When was the last time I even really looked at him?" The nurse guided Delilah into a private consultation room. Tom stayed with Emily, who had grown eerily quiet. "Officer Tom?" Emily's voice was barely audible. "Yes, sweetheart." "He's getting lighter every day," she said, and there was something haunting in the way she described it. "When I pick him up now, it's like holding a cloud. I can barely feel him anymore. It's like he's turning into air. Like he's disappearing right in front of me." Tom felt a chill run down his spine. That wasn't how a 7-year-old should describe a baby's weight loss. It sounded almost supernatural. But children saw things differently. They described what they felt, not what medical textbooks said. Inside the examination room, a nurse named Patricia placed Asher on a pediatric scale. She frowned at the digital reading, reset the scale, and weighed him again. "Dr. Lennox?" Patricia's voice was tense. "You need to see this." Dr. Lennox approached the scale, her reading glasses perched on her nose. She read the number once, twice. Her expression darkened. 6 pounds, 4 ounces, she said quietly. At 4 months old, he weighs less than most newborns. She began a full physical examination. As her trained hands moved over Asher's small body, she noticed things that made her pulse quicken. His muscle tone was weaker than it should be. When she tested his reflexes by tapping his knee, there was almost no response. When she placed him on his stomach, he couldn't lift his head at all. "This isn't starvation," she murmured to herself. "This is something neurological." Dr. Lennox called in her colleague, Dr. Marcus Chen, a pediatric neurologist who happened to be on call that night. When he arrived and began his own examination, his face grew increasingly grave. "Has he ever been able to lift his head?" Dr. Chen asked Delilah, who had returned to the room. I don't know. Maybe. I thought he was just a sleepy baby. Has he shown any unusual movements, twitching, tremors in his fingers or tongue?" Delilah looked confused and terrified. "I don't understand what you're asking me. What's wrong with my son?" Dr. Chen exchanged a glance with Dr. Lennox. "We're going to run some tests. Neurological tests. Blood work. Genetic screening." "Genetic?" Delilah's voice cracked. "What does that mean?" Tom stood in the doorway, Emily still clutching his hand. He watched the doctors confer in hushed tones, pointing to readings on their tablets. He saw the way they kept looking at Asher with expressions that mixed pity and urgency. Finally, Dr. Lennox approached Tom and Delilah. Her voice was measured, professional, but there was compassion in her eyes. "I need you both to understand something very important," she began. "What's happening to Asher may not be related to nutrition at all. His symptoms suggest a possible neuromuscular condition. His muscles aren't developing the way they should. That's why he appears to be getting smaller, lighter. His muscle mass is deteriorating." "But why?" Delilah whispered. "How? That's what we need to find out. Tonight we're admitting Asher to the neonatal intensive care unit. We'll start him on intravenous nutrition immediately. But more importantly, we're running a full diagnostic panel. If this is what I suspect it is, time is critical." Tom felt Emily's hand squeeze his tighter. "What do you suspect?" he asked. Dr. Lennox hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I've seen cases like this before. Very rare cases, but I need test results before I can say anything definitive." She paused, then added the words that sent ice through Tom's veins. "What I can tell you is this. If we don't figure out what's happening to Asher soon, we may not be able to stop it." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Delilah collapsed into a chair, her whole body shaking with sobs. Emily stood frozen, her small face pale with fear she was too young to fully comprehend. And Tom, a man who had spent 20 years seeing the worst humanity had to offer, felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Helplessness. Because somewhere in this hospital, a 4-month-old baby was disappearing, and no one knew why. Asher was moved to the neonatal intensive care unit just after midnight. Through the glass window, Delilah watched as nurses connected her baby to machines that beeped and hummed, monitoring every breath, every heartbeat. An IV line fed nutrients directly into his impossibly tiny veins. She pressed her palm against the cold glass, unable to look away. "I should have seen it," she whispered. "I should have known something was wrong." Tom stood beside her, his jaw tight. He'd made a phone call to the station, asking them to run a background check on the Harwell family address. What he discovered made his blood boil. "Mrs. Harwell," he said carefully, "has anyone from Child Protective Services ever visited your home?" Delilah turned to him confused. "No, why would they?" Tom pulled out his phone, showing her the report he'd just received. "Your address was flagged twice in the past year. Neighbors called in concerns about hearing a baby crying for long periods. Both times the reports were filed and then closed without investigation." Delilah's face went white. "I never knew. No one ever came. I would have gotten help if someone had just told me something was wrong." Before Tom could respond, the emergency room doors swung open. A young woman in a gray pantsuit walked in, carrying a tablet and wearing an expression of barely concealed judgment. Her name tag read, Bryn Castellano, Social Services. She glanced at Delilah, then at the NICU window, then began typing notes without even introducing herself. "You're the mother?" Bryn asked, her tone flat. "Yes," Delilah said quietly. "I'm here to document the situation. I'll need to take photographs and ask some questions." Bryn walked toward the NICU window, snapping pictures of Asher through the glass. "Where is the other child? Emily, correct?" "She's in the waiting room with—" "I'll need to speak with her separately," Bryn interrupted. "And we'll be placing her in temporary foster care tonight." "What?" Delilah's voice cracked. "No, please. She didn't do anything wrong. Neither did I. We just need help." Bryn's expression didn't soften. "That's not my call to make, ma'am. I'm here to ensure the children's safety." Tom stepped forward, his voice firm. "With respect, those reports should have been investigated months ago. If someone had actually visited this family, we might not be standing here right now." Bryn barely looked at him. "I don't have access to those files, officer. I'm dealing with the current situation." As Bryn walked away to make calls, Tom felt frustration rising in his chest. This wasn't justice, this was a system checking boxes. Inside the NICU, Dr. Lennox completed her neurological assessment of Asher. She tested his reflexes again, this time more thoroughly. When she tapped below his knee, there was barely any response. When she placed a small toy in his line of vision, his eyes didn't track it properly. Most concerning of all, when she placed him on his stomach, he couldn't lift his head even an inch. At 4 months old, he should have been able to push up on his forearms. Dr. Lennox stepped out of the unit and immediately paged Dr. Chen, the pediatric neurologist. He arrived within 20 minutes, his face serious as he reviewed the preliminary findings. Dr. Chen conducted his own examination, his movements precise and methodical. He tested Asher's muscle strength, his reflexes, his responses to stimuli. After 15 minutes, he stepped back, his expression troubled. He called Tom and Delilah into a small consultation room. Dr. Lennox joined them. "I need to ask you something specific," Dr. Chen began, his voice gentle but urgent. "Has Asher ever shown any unusual movements? Any twitching in his muscles? Particularly in his tongue or fingers? We call them fasciculations." Delilah looked bewildered. I don't know what that means. What are you looking for?" "Involuntary muscle movements, small tremors you might not even notice unless you were looking for them." Delilah shook her head helplessly. "I work so much I don't know. Emily might have noticed. She spends more time with him than I do." The admission broke something in her, and she began to cry again. Dr. Chen exchanged a meaningful glance with Dr. Lennox. "We're going to run some very specific tests, an EMG, an MRI, and genetic screening. The results will take some time, but they'll give us answers." Tom leaned forward. "What are you looking for, doctor?" Dr. Chen hesitated, clearly not wanting to speculate. "There's a pattern here. The muscle weakness, the poor reflexes, the weight loss. I've seen it before, but it's extremely rare. I need the test results to be certain." "How rare?" Tom pressed. "Rare enough that most pediatricians will never see a case in their entire career," Dr. Chen said quietly. "But if it is what I think it is, we need to act quickly. Every day matters." The weight of those words settled over the room like a heavy fog. Somewhere in the NICU, machines beeped steadily, keeping watch over a baby who was slowly fading away, and the clock was ticking. The next morning, Tom sat in a sterile hospital conference room with a phone in his hands. Not his own, Emily's. With permission from social services, he'd been allowed to review the device. What he found made his chest ache. The search history told a story no 7-year-old should have to live. How to feed a baby when mom is sleeping. Why won't my baby brother eat? How to make baby formula with water. Baby getting smaller. What do I do? Is my baby dying? Each search was more desperate than the last. Emily had watched dozens of YouTube videos about infant care, taking notes in a child's handwriting on scraps of paper Tom had found in her backpack. She'd tried to learn everything from how to burp a baby to how to check if he was breathing properly. She was 7 years old. Tom closed his eyes, fighting back emotion. This little girl had been trying to save her brother's life with nothing but an old smartphone and sheer determination. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. A woman in her late 50s entered, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a kind smile that reached her eyes. "Officer Beckford, I'm Margot Crane. I'll be taking over Emily and Asher's case from Bryn." Tom stood, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm, confident. "Taking over?" "Bryn is new," Margot said diplomatically. "Cases like this require a more experienced touch. I've been with Child Protective Services for 32 years. I've seen a lot, and I've learned that judgment doesn't help anyone. Understanding does." Tom felt relief wash over him. "Thank you." Margot sat down across from him, opening a file. "I reviewed the previous reports on this address, the ones that were closed without investigation." Her voice hardened slightly. "That should never have happened. Someone dropped the ball. Actually, someone threw the ball away. Can we find out who?" "Already did," Margot said, her expression grim. "A supervisor named Dale Thornton. He archived both reports citing insufficient evidence to warrant home visit. But here's the thing, officer. There's a pattern. I pulled his record. In the last 3 years, Dale has closed over 200 cases the same way. No visits, no follow-ups, just closed files." Tom felt anger rising in his throat. How is that possible? Overworked system, understaffing, and supervisors who care more about keeping numbers low than keeping children safe. Margot closed the file. "But that's a fight for another day. Right now, my priority is Emily and Asher." "Emily's in foster care?" "Temporarily, with a very kind family who specializes in emergency placements. She's safe, fed, and sleeping in a real bed. But she's asking for you. She trusts you." Tom nodded slowly. "I'll visit her as soon as I can." "Please do," Margot said gently. "That little girl has been carrying the weight of the world. She needs to know she's not alone anymore." Down the hall, in a specialized neurology lab, Dr. Chen was conducting tests Tom couldn't even pronounce. An electromyography measured the electrical activity in Asher's muscles. An MRI scanned his brain and spinal cord in minute detail. Blood samples were sent to genetics labs for analysis. Dr. Chen watched the EMG readings with growing certainty. The patterns on the screen confirmed what he'd suspected from the moment he'd examined Asher. He saw the telltale signs: abnormal, spontaneous activity in the muscles, reduced nerve conduction, fasciculations that the untrained eye would miss. Dr. Lennox joined him, reviewing the same data. "It's what you thought, isn't it?" Dr. Chen nodded grimly. "The EMG is textbook, but I need the genetic results to confirm. We should have them by tonight. And if you're right, then we have a very narrow window to help this child," Dr. Chen said quietly. "And we need to have a very difficult conversation with his mother." That evening, as the sun set over Millbrook, Tom received a call from Margot. "I'm at the hospital with Delilah," she said. "Dr. Chen just asked us to meet him in the consultation room. He says he has preliminary results. You should be here, officer. Something tells me this family is going to need all the support they can get." Tom arrived at the hospital within 15 minutes. He found Margot and Delilah in the waiting area outside the consultation room. Delilah looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were hollow with fear and exhaustion. Dr. Chen emerged, his face serious but not unkind. Dr. Lennox stood beside him. "Thank you all for coming," Dr. Chen began. "I want to explain what we've discovered about Asher's condition. Some of this might be difficult to hear, but I need you to understand what we're dealing with." Delilah gripped Margot's hand. Tom stood close, ready to steady her if needed. Dr. Chen took a breath. Asher's symptoms, the muscle weakness, the weight loss, the difficulty feeding, none of it is because he wasn't being fed enough. Delilah's voice cracked. "Then what's happening to my baby?" Dr. Chen's next words would change everything. Dr. Chen pulled up a series of images on his tablet, showing them to the room. They looked like complex maps of nerves and muscles, colorful lines and patterns that meant nothing to Tom or Delilah. "What you're looking at," Dr. Chen explained gently, are the results of Asher's neurological tests. They show us something very specific. Asher has a condition called spinal muscular atrophy. We call it SMA. Delilah stared at him blankly. What does that mean? Dr. Lennox stepped forward, her voice calm and compassionate. SMA is a genetic condition. It affects the motor neurons in the spinal cord. These are the nerve cells that control muscle movement. In Asher's case, these neurons aren't functioning properly, which means his muscles aren't getting the signals they need to grow and develop. That's why he's losing weight, Dr. Chen continued. It's not because he's not getting food. It's because his muscles are wasting away. They're not developing like they should. That's why Emily described him as disappearing. In a very real sense, his muscle mass is diminishing. Tom felt the pieces clicking into place, so when she said he was getting lighter, she was right, Dr. Chen said. Muscle tissue weighs more than fat. As his muscles deteriorate, he physically weighs less. A 7-year-old described a complex medical phenomenon better than most doctors could. Delilah's face crumpled. This is my fault. I gave this to him. It's genetic, you said. I did this. No, doctor, Lennox said firmly, kneeling beside Delilah's chair. Both parents have to carry the gene for a child to develop SMA. You didn't know. Your husband didn't know. This isn't something you cause through action or inaction. This is biology. This is not your fault. Delilah began to sob, years of exhaustion and guilt pouring out of her. Margot wrapped an arm around her shoulders, holding her steady. Tom's voice was quiet but urgent. Can it be treated? Dr. Chen's expression grew serious. Yes. But we need to talk about timing. SMA type 1, which is what Asher has, is the most severe form. Without treatment, children with this condition typically don't survive past 2 years of age. The room went silent except for the sound of Delilah's crying. However, Dr. Chen continued, and there was hope in his voice now, there is a treatment. It's called gene therapy, a single dose of medication that can actually correct the genetic problem at its source. It's one of the most advanced treatments in modern medicine. Delilah looked up, her eyes red but suddenly desperate with hope. Then we do it, right now. Whatever it costs, I'll find a way. Dr. Chen and Dr. Lennox exchanged a glance. There are 2 challenges, Dr. Lennox said gently. The first is time. The earlier we administer this treatment, the more effective it is. Right now, Asher's respiratory muscles are already weakening. He's having trouble breathing on his own. We estimate he has 6 to 8 weeks before his condition becomes critical, before his breathing becomes so compromised that… She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. And the second challenge? Tom asked. The treatment requires very specific approval processes, Dr. Chen explained. Insurance authorization, custodial consent, medical board reviews. Under normal circumstances, this process takes months. Months? Delilah stood abruptly. You just said he has weeks. We know, Dr. Lennox said, her voice firm but kind. That's why we're going to fight to speed up the process. But you need to understand what we're up against. We're in a race against time. Margot spoke up for the first time. What about the current custody situation? Emily is in foster care. Delilah is under investigation. Does that affect our ability to move forward? Dr. Chen nodded grimly. The treatment requires documented legal guardianship. Right now, custody is unclear. That's going to be a problem. Tom felt determination crystallize inside him. Then we fix it, whatever it takes. Dr. Chen turned to Delilah, his voice gentle but urgent. Mrs. Harwell, I need you to understand something very important. When Asher was first reported by your neighbors 8 months ago, if someone had actually investigated, if someone had brought him in for a medical evaluation, we could have diagnosed this condition much earlier. The treatment would have been twice as effective. His chances of full recovery would have been significantly higher. Delilah's hands shook. Someone knew? Someone could have helped us, and they just didn't? The system failed you, Margot said quietly. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows it. Dr. Lennox stood. Right now, Asher is stable. But every day we wait, he gets weaker. His window for treatment is closing. Tom looked at the tiny baby through the glass window of the NICU. Asher lay perfectly still, his chest rising and falling with visible effort. Machines monitored every breath, 6 to 8 weeks. The clock was ticking, and somewhere in an office across town, a man named Dale Thornton had no idea that his negligence had stolen months from a dying baby's life. The diagnosis brought clarity, but it also brought a new kind of terror. The question was no longer, what's wrong with Asher? It was, how do we save him in time, Dr. Wayne? Lennox called a meeting the next morning with Delilah, Tom, and Margot. She had paperwork spread across the table, insurance forms, treatment protocols, authorization requests. The gene therapy treatment is called Zolgensma, she explained. It's the most expensive medication in the world. The single dose costs $2.1 million. Delilah's face went pale. I make $12 an hour at the processing plant. I can barely afford rent. I know, Dr. Lennox said gently. That's why insurance coverage is critical. I've already submitted the request to your insurance company. And? Tom asked, though he could already read the answer in her expression. They denied it. They're calling SMA a pre-existing condition that wasn't diagnosed before coverage began. It's a technicality, and it's wrong, but it's what they're hiding behind. Delilah put her head in her hands. So my baby is going to die because of paperwork? No, Margot said firmly. Because we're going to fight this. There are programs, foundations, emergency medical funds. We'll find a way. Tom stood up, pacing. How long do we have to get approval? Realistically? We need to start the treatment within 6 weeks, Dr. Lennox said. After that, the muscle damage to his respiratory system may be too severe. The treatment works best when started early. 6 weeks. That was the clock they were racing against now. Tom spent the next 3 days working every angle he could think of. He made calls to medical advocacy groups, researched emergency funding programs, even reached out to local news stations to see if they'd cover the story. But more than that, he found himself visiting the hospital every day. He'd stop by to check on Asher, bring coffee to Delilah, and most importantly, he'd visit Emily at her foster home. The foster family, the Hendersons, were kind people in their 60s. They welcomed Tom warmly and let him spend time with Emily in their living room. How's Asher? Emily asked every time, her small voice filled with worry. He's stable, Tom would tell her. The doctors know what's wrong now and they're working on making him better. Can I see him? Soon, sweetheart, I promise. One afternoon, as Tom sat with Emily coloring pictures to hang in Asher's hospital room, she looked up at him with those serious brown eyes. Officer Tom, are you going to leave us too? Like my dad did. The question hit Tom like a punch to the chest. No, Emily, I'm not going anywhere. Promise? Tom held out his pinky finger, and she wrapped her tiny one around it. I promise. Meanwhile, Delilah was facing her own battles. Margot had connected her with a free mental health program through the hospital. At first, Delilah resisted. I don't have time for therapy, she said. I need to focus on Asher. You can't help him if you fall apart, Margot said gently. And the court is going to look at whether you're getting help. If you want Emily back, if you want to be strong for both your children, you need to do this. Reluctantly, Delilah agreed. She started attending counseling sessions twice a week. Slowly, she began to open up about the crushing weight she'd been carrying. The depression, the exhaustion, the feeling of drowning with no one to hear her screams for help. For the first time in years, someone was listening. Tom, doing his own investigation, pulled the official files on the Harwell family from the county records. What he found made his blood boil. 2 reports, 2 separate neighbors calling in concerns about a crying baby and a struggling mother. Both reports filed under the name of the same supervisor, Dale Thornton. Both closed with the same note. Insufficient evidence to warrant home visit. Case archived. Tom dug deeper. He found Dale's employment record, his case closure statistics. Over the past 3 years, Dale had closed 247 cases without home visits. His closure rate was the highest in the department. It looked efficient on paper. In reality, it was negligence on a massive scale. Tom requested a meeting with Dale. The response came back quickly. Mr. Thornton declines to meet with officers outside of official investigations. Tom clenched his jaw. This man had stolen time from Asher. Time that could have meant the difference between full recovery and permanent damage. That evening, Tom sat in Asher's hospital room, watching the baby's chest rise and fall with the help of supplemental oxygen. "We're going to fix this, buddy," he whispered. "I don't know how yet, but we're going to make sure you get that treatment, and we're going to make sure the people who failed you answer for it." Asher's tiny hand twitched slightly, the involuntary muscle movement that was a hallmark of his condition. The clock was ticking, and Tom Beckford wasn't about to let time run out. Tom didn't wait for permission. 2 days after being denied a meeting, he drove to the county social services building and walked straight to Dale Thornton's office. Dale was exactly what Tom expected. A man in his early 50s sitting behind a cluttered desk, eating lunch while scrolling through his phone. He looked up with annoyance when Tom knocked on his open door. "Can I help you?" "Dale Thornton." "That's what the nameplate says." Tom stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "I'm Officer Tom Beckford. I need to talk to you about a case you handled. The Harwell family." Dale's expression didn't change. "I handle a lot of cases, officer. You'll need to be more specific." 2 reports, last year. Both from neighbors concerned about a baby and a struggling mother. Both filed and closed without investigation. Recognition flickered across Dale's face, but he shrugged. If the case was closed, there wasn't enough evidence to pursue it. Tom felt his hands clench into fists. "You never visited the house." "I reviewed the report, standard protocol. A baby was dying, Mr. Thornton. He has a genetic condition that could have been diagnosed 8 months ago if someone had just knocked on that door. If someone had just looked at him." Dale leaned back in his chair, defensive. "I close 200 cases a year, officer. You expect me to personally visit every single family that gets reported? We're understaffed, underfunded, and overwhelmed. I did what I could with the resources available." "You did nothing." "I did my job," Dale shot back. "Sometimes that means making tough decisions about where to allocate limited resources. I can't save everyone." Tom leaned forward, his voice low and controlled. "That baby weighs 6 pounds at 4 months old. He can barely breathe. And every week you delayed cost him a chance at recovery. Does that bother you at all?" Dale's jaw tightened. "Don't come in here acting self-righteous. You think the system is broken? Welcome to reality. I'm not the villain here, officer. I'm just the guy stuck trying to hold together a system that doesn't have enough people or money to actually help anyone." Before Tom could respond, Margot appeared in the doorway. She must have been alerted by the front desk. "Officer Beckford," she said firmly. "A word, please." In the hallway, Margot pulled Tom aside. "I know you're angry. I am too. But confronting Dale without proper procedure won't help Asher. Someone needs to hold him accountable." "And someone will," Margot promised. "I've already filed a formal complaint with the ethics board. They're reviewing his entire case history. But right now, we need to focus on what actually helps that baby get treatment." Tom took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. Margot continued, "I just got word from the hospital. Asher's insurance appeal was denied again. They're saying we need documented legal custody before they'll even consider coverage. With Emily in foster care and Delilah under investigation, we're stuck in bureaucratic limbo. What do? We need a legal guardian who can make medical decisions. Someone the court will approve. Someone who can petition for emergency medical funding." Margot looked at Tom meaningfully. "Someone like you." Tom blinked. "Me? You're a respected police officer. You have a stable income, a clean record, and you've already formed a bond with both children. If you petition for temporary guardianship, the court might fast-track it given the medical emergency. That's a huge step." "It is," Margot agreed, "but we're running out of time." That evening, Tom received a call from Dr. Chen. "Officer Beckford, I need you to come to the hospital. It's about Asher." Tom's heart dropped. "Is he okay?" He's stable, but I need to show you something. 15 minutes later, Tom stood in the NICU beside Dr. Chen, looking at a computer screen showing Asher's latest respiratory readings. His oxygen saturation is dropping, Dr. Chen explained. Not dramatically, but consistently. His breathing muscles are getting weaker. 2 weeks ago, he was breathing comfortably on his own. Now he needs supplemental oxygen. In another 2 weeks, he might need a ventilator. How long do we have? Tom asked quietly. Dr. Chen's face was grave. To start treatment while it's still highly effective. 4 weeks, maybe 5. After that, the damage to his respiratory system may be irreversible. 4 weeks. The clock wasn't just ticking anymore. It was running out. Tom spent that night sitting at his kitchen table, staring at blank guardianship petition forms. The weight of what he was considering pressed down on him like a physical force. He was a widower, no children of his own. He worked long hours in a job that was often unpredictable and dangerous. What made him think he could be responsible for 2 children, one of whom had a life-threatening medical condition? But then he thought of Emily's small hand in his, her voice asking him not to leave like everyone else had. He thought of Asher fighting for every breath. By morning, his decision was made. Margot connected him with Celeste Morris, a family rights attorney known for taking on impossible cases. Her office was small, filled with case files stacked high on every surface. When Tom explained the situation, Celeste listened without interrupting, her sharp eyes never leaving his face. "This is exactly the kind of systemic failure I fight," she said when he finished. "A family falling through every crack in a broken system. I'll take the case. Pro bono." "Why?" Tom asked. Celeste smiled. "Because someone has to. And because I believe you when you say you won't abandon these kids. I can see it in your eyes." She pulled out paperwork, her pen moving quickly. "Here's what we're up against. The court will question everything. Your job, your living situation, your ability to handle a medically complex child. But we have one advantage. Time pressure. With Asher's condition deteriorating, we can petition for emergency temporary guardianship. It's not permanent, just until Delilah completes her treatment program and proves stability. How long will that take? If we file tomorrow and push hard, 2 weeks for a hearing, maybe 3. Tom felt his chest tighten. That left maybe 2 weeks to get funding approval after guardianship was established. It would be tight. Too tight. But it was their only option. 3 days later, Margot arranged something that broke protocol but felt necessary. She got special permission for Emily to visit the hospital to see both Asher and her mother. Tom picked Emily up from the Hendersons' house. She was quiet during the drive, clutching a drawing she'd made for Asher. It showed stick figures of a family holding hands under a rainbow. When they arrived at the hospital, Delilah was waiting outside the NICU. She looked different, still tired, but there was a clarity in her eyes that hadn't been there before. The counseling was helping. "Mommy!" Emily ran to her, and Delilah caught her daughter in her arms, holding her so tightly it looked like she'd never let go. "I'm so sorry, baby," Delilah whispered. "I'm so sorry for everything." "It's okay, Mommy. Officer Tom says Asher is going to get better." They stood together at the NICU window, looking at Asher. The baby was so small among the machines and tubes. Emily pressed her drawing against the glass. "When can he come home?" she asked. Tom knelt beside her. "The doctors are working on getting him special medicine. It's going to make him stronger. Will he be able to play with me?" "With time and help, yes," Tom said. "But he's going to need a lot of care. It's going to be hard work." Emily nodded seriously. "I'm good at hard work." Delilah's voice broke. "You shouldn't have to be, sweetheart. You're 7 years old. You should be playing and going to school and being a kid." "I just want us to be together," Emily said simply. Margot stood back, documenting the visit with photographs for the court file. Evidence of family bonds, evidence of progress. After an hour, it was time to go. Emily hugged her mother goodbye, and Delilah held on like she was drowning, and Emily was her lifeline. As Tom walked Emily back to the car, she was quiet for a long time. Finally, she looked up at him. "Officer Tom." "Yes, sweetheart?" "Can you be our family? Just until Mommy gets better. Her voice was small but hopeful. Please don't leave us like everyone else did. Please don't give up on us. Tom felt something crack open in his chest. He'd built walls around his heart after his wife died. Told himself he was better off alone. But standing there, looking at this brave little girl who'd carried burdens no child should carry, he knew those walls were already gone. "Emily," he said, crouching down to her level. "I'm not going anywhere, that's a promise." She threw her arms around his neck, and Tom held her while she cried tears she'd been holding back for too long. He was all in now. There was no turning back. The courthouse was cold and impersonal, all gray walls and fluorescent lighting. Tom sat in the hallway outside the courtroom, his dress uniform pressed and clean, his hands clasped tightly together. Beside him, Delilah looked terrified. She'd borrowed a simple dress from Margot, pulled her hair back neatly. She was trying so hard to look stable, capable, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. "What if they say no?" she whispered. "What if they take my children away forever?" Celeste, sitting on her other side, placed a reassuring hand on Delilah's arm. "We've prepared for this. Your counseling records are excellent. Your doctor wrote a strong letter about your progress. And Officer Beckford's petition for temporary guardianship gives the court a safe middle ground." "All rise," the bailiff called. The Honorable Judge Patricia Whitmore presiding. Inside the courtroom, Judge Whitmore was a stern woman in her 60s with reading glasses perched on her nose. She reviewed the case file with an expression that gave nothing away. The state's attorney, a young man named Derek Paulson, spoke first. His voice was formal, detached. "Your Honor, this case involves severe neglect of 2 minor children. A 4-month-old infant was found weighing only 6 pounds, suffering from a diagnosed medical condition that went undetected. His 7-year-old sister was forced to act as his primary caregiver. The mother, Delilah Harwell, admits to working excessive hours and leaving the children unsupervised for extended periods." Tom watched Delilah flinch at every word. Paulson continued, "While the mother claims she's now receiving treatment, the damage has been done. We believe permanent placement through adoption would provide these children with the stability they desperately need." Celeste stood. "Your Honor, if I may, what Mr. Paulson calls neglect, the medical evidence calls tragedy. Asher Harwell has spinal muscular atrophy, a genetic condition. Even with perfect care, he would have developed symptoms. The real failure here wasn't Ms. Harwell. It was a social services system that ignored 2 separate reports about this family." She presented the medical records, Dr. Chen's testimony about SMA, and the archived case files that showed Dale Thornton's negligence. Judge Whitmore studied the documents carefully. "The medical condition is noted. However, that doesn't address the question of whether Ms. Harwell is currently capable of caring for 2 children, one with significant medical needs." Delilah was called to testify. Her voice shook as she spoke. "I know I made mistakes," she said. "I was drowning and I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't even know help existed. But I love my children more than anything in this world. I'm getting treatment now. I'm getting stronger. Please don't take them away from me permanently." Tom was called next. He stood at the witness stand, his voice steady and clear. "Your Honor, I'm petitioning for temporary guardianship not because I think Ms. Harwell is unfit, but because I believe she needs time to heal. Time the system should have given her months ago. I'm not trying to replace her as a parent. I'm trying to be a bridge until she's ready." Judge Whitmore looked at him over her glasses. "Officer Beckford, you're a single man with a demanding job. You have no children of your own, no experience with special medical needs. Why should I trust you with this responsibility?" Tom chose his words carefully. "Because I won't abandon this family like everyone else has. I won't close their file without investigating. I won't give up when things get hard. I'll show up every single day until they don't need me anymore." The courtroom was silent. Judge Whitmore closed the file. "This is a complex situation. I'm ordering a 2-week continuance for additional psychological evaluations of Ms. Harwell and a home study of Officer Beckford's residence. We'll reconvene on the 15th. Celeste stood quickly. Your Honor, the child's medical condition is time-sensitive. Every week of delay is noted in the record, Judge Whitmore interrupted. But I will not rush a decision that affects two children's entire futures. 2 weeks. That's my ruling. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. Outside the courtroom, Tom tried to stay positive. 2 weeks isn't forever, we can work with that. But Delilah was devastated. What if she says no? What if in 2 weeks she decides I'm not good enough? As they walked toward the exit, a voice called out from behind them. Officer Beckford. Tom turned to see Dale Thornton standing in the courthouse hallway, a manila envelope under his arm. He had a smile on his face that made Tom's skin crawl. Quite the performance in there, Dale said casually. Playing hero. But you and I both know how this ends. That baby isn't going to make it, and that woman will never get her kids back. Tom stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. You need to walk away, right now. Dale shrugged. Just stating facts, some people just aren't meant to be parents. Margot grabbed Tom's arm before he could do something that would cost him everything. Dale walked away, whistling. And somewhere in a hospital, Asher's oxygen levels dropped another fraction of a percent. The clock was still ticking. 3 weeks had passed since the diagnosis. Asher's condition was worsening. He now needed oxygen 24 hours a day, and his little body seemed to grow weaker with each passing day. But something else was happening too. Something unexpected. Delilah had completed 6 weeks of intensive counseling. Her therapist wrote a glowing report about her progress, her commitment to healing, and her genuine desire to be a better mother. Margot received news that made her pulse quicken. The ethics investigation into Dale Thornton had uncovered something massive. Dale hadn't just closed the Harwell case without investigation. He'd closed 247 cases over 3 years the same way, all to keep his numbers low and earn performance bonuses. 3 children in other families had died in situations he'd ignored. The scandal was about to break wide open. Meanwhile, Celeste found a breakthrough. A national foundation called Hope for Rare Diseases offered emergency funding for children with conditions like SMA, but only if legal guardianship was clearly established and the family demonstrated stable support. We have a real chance now, Celeste told Tom. If the judge grants you temporary guardianship, we can apply for foundation funding immediately. They've fast-tracked cases before when time is critical. Tom's home study went perfectly. The social worker noted his stable employment, clean home, and genuine commitment to the children. The pieces were starting to fall into place. But time was running out faster than they were moving forward. Dr. Chen called Tom to the hospital one evening. His face was grave. Asher's breathing is getting worse. We may need to intubate him within the next 10 days. Once that happens, the treatment becomes less effective. We're down to our last window of opportunity. Tom stood at the NICU window, watching Asher struggle for each breath. The baby's tiny chest rose and fell with visible effort. Hang in there, buddy, Tom whispered. We're almost there. Just hold on a little longer. That night, Tom's phone rang. It was an unknown number. When he answered, a robotic voice delivered a message. Officer Beckford, this is your last warning. Drop the Harwell case, or your career is over. Tom traced the call. It came from a phone registered to Dale Thornton's office. He saved the recording, because this time Dale had made a mistake, and Tom was going to make sure everyone knew it. Tom didn't hesitate. He took the recording of Dale's threatening call straight to Margot and Celeste. This is witness intimidation, Celeste said, her eyes lighting up. This changes everything. We can use this in court. Margot was already making calls. The ethics board needs to hear this. Dale is digging his own grave. The second custody hearing was scheduled for 3 days away. Celeste worked around the clock preparing their case. She had Dr. Chen ready to testify about Asher's urgent need for treatment. She had Delilah's counselor prepared to speak about her remarkable progress. She had the archived case files showing Dale's pattern of negligence. And now, she had evidence of Dale trying to interfere with justice. Tom spent those 3 days with Emily. She was staying with him temporarily under emergency foster placement while awaiting the hearing. Every morning he made her breakfast. Every evening they visited Delilah and Asher at the hospital. Emily was blooming. She laughed more, drew pictures, acted like a 7-year-old should. But she asked the same question every night. When can we all be together? Soon, Tom promised. Very soon. At the hospital, Asher's condition reached a critical point. Dr. Chen made the difficult decision to intubate him, placing a breathing tube down his throat to help his failing respiratory muscles. Delilah held her baby's hand through the procedure, tears streaming down her face. We're running out of time, Dr. Chen told Tom privately. Even if you get guardianship tomorrow, we need funding approval and treatment authorization. That could take weeks we don't have. But Celeste had been working another angle. She'd contacted the Hope for Rare Diseases Foundation directly, explaining Asher's situation. They'd agreed to expedite the application if guardianship was established. If the judge rules in our favor, Celeste explained, I can have the foundation application submitted within hours. They've promised a decision within 72 hours. Everything was coming down to one hearing, one judge's decision. The night before court, Tom couldn't sleep. He sat in Asher's hospital room, watching the ventilator breathe for the baby who'd already fought so hard. Tomorrow, he whispered, tomorrow we fight for you. Delilah arrived just after midnight. She wasn't supposed to be there, but the nurses looked the other way. She and Tom sat together in silence, two people who'd become unlikely allies in an impossible battle. Thank you, Delilah said quietly, for not giving up on us. I made a promise, Tom replied, and I keep my promises. Outside, dawn was breaking. The day of reckoning had arrived. The morning of the hearing, Tom made a decision that would change his life. He met with his police captain before heading to court. I need to request reduced hours, Tom said. Part-time status. Captain Rodriguez looked surprised. Tom, you're one of my best officers. Part-time means half salary. Are you sure? Those kids need stability. If the judge grants me guardianship, I need to be there. Not just physically, but present. Really present. The captain nodded slowly. You're a good man, Beckford. Request approved. Tom felt the weight of it. Half his income, his entire life restructured around 2 children who weren't even his. But when he thought of Emily's trust, of Asher fighting for every breath, the choice felt easy. Delilah made her own sacrifice that morning. Her counselor recommended an extended 90-day residential treatment program to complete her recovery properly. It means being away from Emily and Asher for 3 months, the counselor explained. But it will show the court you're serious about getting well. Delilah's hands shook as she signed the papers. 3 more months without holding her children. But if it meant getting them back permanently, she'd endure anything. The most powerful moment came from Emily. Celeste had arranged for her to record a video testimony for the judge. In the recording, Emily sat in a small chair, her feet dangling above the floor. She looked directly at the camera. My name is Emily Harwell, and I'm 7 years old, she began, her voice small but steady. I tried to take care of my baby brother because my mommy was sick and tired. I watched videos on how to feed him. I tried really hard. Her voice cracked. I thought it was my fault when he got smaller. But Officer Tom and the doctors said it wasn't. They said Asher is sick because of something nobody could see. Tears rolled down her cheeks. My mommy loves us. She just needed help and nobody would help her. But Officer Tom helped, and Miss Margot helped. And now Mommy is getting better. Emily looked straight into the camera. Please don't take us away from Mommy forever. And please let Officer Tom stay with us. He promised he wouldn't leave. And I believe him. When Celeste showed the video to Tom, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. That afternoon, Dr. Chen received urgent test results. Asher's oxygen levels had dropped dangerously low overnight. If we don't start treatment within 7 days, Dr. Chen said grimly, it might be too late to save him. 7 days. Everything had to happen now. The night before the final hearing, Tom couldn't stay away from the hospital. He drove through the quiet streets of Millbrook, arriving just after 10 p.m. Asher lay in his incubator, the ventilator breathing for him with steady, mechanical precision. He looked so fragile, so impossibly small. Tom placed his hand against the warm plastic, as close as he could get to touching the baby. "Tomorrow is the big day, buddy," he whispered. "We're going to fight for you. And we're going to win." The sound of footsteps made him turn. Delilah walked in, escorted by her counselor who'd gotten special permission for this late visit. "I couldn't sleep," Delilah admitted. "I needed to see him." They stood together in silence, two people who'd been strangers a month ago, now bound by their love for these children. "I've been thinking," Delilah said quietly, "about what happens after. If we win tomorrow, if Asher gets his treatment, if I complete my program, what does our life look like?" Tom considered the question carefully. "I think it looks like a family that went through something terrible and came out stronger. Not perfect, but together." "You really meant it, didn't you?" Delilah's voice was soft. "When you said you wouldn't leave." "I did. I do." Tom looked at Asher. "I lost my wife 3 years ago. Lost the chance to be a father. I thought that part of my life was over. But then I kicked down your door and found 2 kids who needed someone to show up, to stay. I can't walk away from that." Delilah wiped tears from her eyes. "Thank you for seeing us when the whole world looked away." They talked for hours about the future, about Asher's treatment plan, his therapy needs, about Emily going back to school, making friends, being a kid again, about Delilah finding part-time work that wouldn't destroy her, getting stable housing, building a real support system. It wasn't a fairy tale ending they were imagining. It was something better, something real and possible. Just before midnight, Tom's phone rang. It was Margot. "I just received the official ethics board report on Dale Thornton," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Tom, it's worse than we thought. He didn't just archive cases, he falsified visit reports. He claimed to have conducted home checks that never happened. And the 3 children who died? He buried those reports entirely." Tom felt cold fury wash over him. How did he get away with it for so long? Because nobody was looking. Nobody thought to question a supervisor with high closure rates. Margot paused. "But they're looking now. Criminal charges are being filed. And Celeste is going to use all of this in court tomorrow." After hanging up, Tom looked at Asher one more time. "That man stole time from you," he said quietly. 8 months when you could have been diagnosed, could have started treatment earlier. But tomorrow, he's going to answer for that. I promise you. As dawn approached, Tom finally left the hospital. He stopped by his house and found Emily awake, sitting at the kitchen table with Mrs. Henderson. "I couldn't sleep either," Emily said. Tom sat beside her. "Nervous?" She nodded. "What if the judge says no?" Tom took her small hand in his. "Then we appeal. We fight. We don't give up. But Emily, I believe tomorrow is going to be a good day. I really do. Promise?" "Promise." As the sun rose over Millbrook, casting golden light across the quiet town, everyone was preparing for the battle ahead. Celeste was reviewing her notes one final time. Delilah was praying for strength. Margot was organizing evidence. And in the hospital, Asher was fighting for every breath. The day of truth had arrived. The courtroom was packed. Judge Whitmore took her seat, and the tension was palpable. Celeste stood, her voice clear and powerful. "Your Honor, this case is about more than custody. It's about a system that failed a family at every turn." She presented the medical records first. Dr. Chen took the stand, his testimony precise and devastating. "Asher Harwell has spinal muscular atrophy type 1, he explained. "This is a genetic condition, not caused by neglect." But here's the critical point. If he'd been diagnosed when the first report was filed 8 months ago, his chances of responding to treatment would have been 95%. Now, with his respiratory muscles severely compromised, that chance has dropped to 60%. The courtroom fell silent. Celeste continued. "That's 8 months of stolen time, 8 months that could have saved this child more suffering. And who stole that time?" She presented the evidence against Dale Thornton. the archived reports, the falsified visit logs, the pattern of negligence across hundreds of cases. Margot testified about the ethics investigation. 3 children died in situations Mr. Thornton ignored. He traded children's safety for performance bonuses. Judge Whitmore's face grew darker with each revelation. Then Celeste played Emily's video. The entire courtroom watched as the 7-year-old girl explained how she'd tried to save her brother, how she'd believed it was her fault, how she just wanted her family together. Several people in the gallery wiped tears from their eyes. Tom was called to testify last. He stood tall, his voice steady. "Your Honor, I'm not asking to replace Delilah Harwell as a parent. I'm asking to be a bridge. To give her the time she needs to heal while ensuring these children are safe, loved, and cared for. Asher needs treatment within days, not weeks. We don't have time for more delays." Judge Whitmore looked at Delilah. "Ms. Harwell, do you consent to temporary guardianship?" Delilah stood, her voice clear despite her tears. "Yes, Your Honor. Officer Beckford has shown my children more care in 1 month than the system showed us in years. I trust him." The judge reviewed her notes for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she spoke. "I've reviewed all the evidence. The medical testimony is clear. This child's condition is genetic, not the result of intentional neglect. The evidence of systemic failure is overwhelming." She looked directly at Tom. "Officer Beckford, I'm granting you temporary guardianship of Emily and Asher Harwell for a period of 90 days, renewable based on Ms. Harwell's progress in treatment. You will have full medical decision-making authority." Relief flooded through Tom. "Ms. Harwell," the judge continued, "I'm ordering you to complete the residential treatment program. Prove to this court that you can be the mother these children deserve." "I will, Your Honor, I promise." Judge Whitmore's expression hardened. "As for the failures of the Social Services Department, I'm forwarding all evidence to the district attorney. Mr. Thornton's actions warrant criminal investigation." The gavel came down. They'd won. Tom immediately called the Hope for Rare Diseases Foundation from the courthouse steps. "We have guardianship. We need emergency funding for Asher Harwell." "We've been waiting for your call," the coordinator said. "Application approved, treatment authorized. We'll contact the hospital immediately." In the hospital, Dr. Chen received the call he'd been waiting for. "Asher Harwell is approved for Zolgensma therapy. We can begin preparation immediately." The treatment that could save Asher's life was finally within reach. 6 months later, the park on Maple Street was alive with autumn colors. Golden leaves drifted down from the trees, and the afternoon sun cast everything in warm light. Tom spread a blanket on the grass while Emily ran ahead, chasing leaves and laughing. She looked like a different child. Her eyes sparkled. Her smile came easily. She was finally just being 7 years old. Delilah arrived carrying Asher, now 10 months old. She'd completed her 90-day program 2 months ago and had been living in a small apartment nearby, slowly rebuilding her life. She worked part-time at the library now, hours that let her actually be a mother. But the real miracle was Asher. The gene therapy treatment had been administered 5 months ago. The change wasn't instant, but it was happening. Asher had gained weight. He was breathing on his own now, no more ventilator, no more oxygen. His muscles were slowly, steadily growing stronger. He still needed physical therapy 3 times a week. He'd probably always need some level of care. But he was alive. He was fighting. He was winning. Tom took Asher from Delilah and held him up, watching the baby's arms move, his legs kick. Movements that seemed impossible just months ago. "Look at you, buddy," Tom whispered. "You're not disappearing anymore." Emily ran over and gently touched her brother's hand. Asher's tiny fingers wrapped around hers, gripping with surprising strength. "He's getting so strong," Emily said proudly. Delilah sat on the blanket, watching her children with tears in her eyes. Happy tears this time. "I never thought we'd get here. I thought I'd lost everything." Tom sat beside her. "You didn't lose anything. You found help. That's not weakness. That's courage." Margot had visited the week before with news. Dale Thornton had been sentenced to 18 months in prison for falsifying government documents and endangering children. The social services department had implemented new policies requiring mandatory home visits for all reports. One case, one family, had changed an entire system. As the sun began to set, Emily made a wish on a dandelion. "What did you wish for?" Tom asked. Emily looked at her mother, at her brother, at Tom. "I wished that we'd never be invisible again." Delilah reached over and squeezed her daughter's hand. "We're not, baby, we're not." Tom looked at this family, not perfect, not unmarked by struggle, but together and healing, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Because sometimes the people who are disappearing just need someone to see them, to fight for them, to refuse to look away. And sometimes love shows up in the most unexpected places, not to save you, but to remind you that you were never meant to face the darkness alone.